Hi everyone, welcome to Health and Wealth.
We're your hosts, Tyler and Kelly, and we're excited that you're joining us tonight. We started Health and Wealth to showcase growth-minded individuals in the Twin Cities area who are focused on topics such as
Health, like physical, spiritual, and mental health.
And wealth, like business owners, entrepreneurs, and extreme go-getters. Tonight's first guest is Twin Cities real estate professional Brady Mason, who joins us from Edina Realty and works in the buyers and sellers side.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Brady.
Thanks for having me.
Can you start off by telling our viewers a little bit about what brought you to the real estate industry?
Yeah, I actually have kind of been around the industry my whole life. My dad worked on the corporate side and on the title side, and I at one point was working the title side, which was not what I was intending to do, but it kind of got me more acclimated to the industry. And yeah, I just kind of saw how the agents were doing and what that lifestyle was like, and what they're capable of earning, and it just was real appealing to me. So I made the switch over to the sales side of the industry.
Like father, like son, huh?
Yeah, kind of like hockey. It's always the hockey play, the dad does it. You see that a lot in real estate too.
Okay. So as a professional, talk a little bit about what you see as the benefits of home ownership.
Well, there's numerous benefits of home ownership. The main one being that you're building equity. So not only do you own a home, you have a place to live that you can modify and really make your own, but you also, it's an investment, so you're gaining money. A lot of the times I see people who bought their home however many years ago, and now they're selling it for this much more, so they're leaving with a profit, and they can step up, in home ownership. They can use that money for whatever, but it's an investment. And really the worst case scenario a lot of the times is that you sell your house for, what you bought it for, so you're essentially living, rent-free for that period of time. But
So big initial investment, and then it pays off later.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes years down the line, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's it's a bit of a headache when you start up. There's hoops you got to jump through. You got to have some money up front for the down payment, for your mortgage, some other fees, closing fees. But once you get through that, it ultimately does pay off a vast majority of the time, especially with the market and everything the way it is now.
Mm-hmm. So with some of those hoops that you were talking about, I feel like a lot of people think of home ownership as kind of this big, lofty goal that they're maybe not quite ready for, but yet in reality it might actually be accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people who were kind of on the fence about taking that plunge?
Well, I mean, just to think about it purely pragmatically, I know there's this commercial going around with Jeff Goldblum where he's talking about, there's some people going around like a hoop, and he's talking about don't be stuck in a mortgage like it's some sort of a trap. But essentially it's not a trap. You're paying, if you're going to pay rent for this X period of time, say you live somewhere for 10 years, and for simple math's sake, you spend $10,000 on rent, but you move out at the end of those 10 years and you don't get that money back. That's money that's gone. Whereas, like I said before, if you have a mortgage, you live there, you move out, you're either getting this money back or more likely you're profiting off this. So it's an investment. And a lot of the fears people have with this starting is the financial part, where you think you need to put a large chunk of money. It's 20% down. That's kind of the rule of thumb. But when you talk to a mortgage specialist, there's ways around that. You don't need to have an ungodly amount of money to buy a house up front.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good investment. Are there any intangible benefits about just having a place of your own?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're renting, when you're living somewhere that you don't own, you don't have the ability to modify it in your own way, really make it your own, specialize it, and obviously you want to be smart. And if you're thinking long term, you're going to want to sell eventually. Don't do like what a Michael Jordan did and slap his 23 and his logo all over his $2 billion mansion, because no one's ever going to buy that. He priced himself out, and it looks ridiculous. But you can still make something the way you want it to, so you can live how you want to live in your own property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What's the Twin Cities real estate market like right now?
It's pretty crazy. I think it's the lowest inventory that we've had in almost a decade. So for sellers right now, things are flying off the shelves, and they're getting above market value. So it's great for sellers, and buyers just need to be a little quicker, a little more diligent when they're looking at properties, because stuff is going to be gone before they get a chance to, a lot of times, even put down an offer. So it's all about getting a step ahead on people, but it's still definitely possible for buyers too. Okay.
So what should potential buyers do to get a step ahead?
There's different. You can get your app. Everyone's to get some sort of a mobile app. Be browsing the website. A lot of companies have the different pre-networking things you can do, so you can see properties before they go on the market, which a lot of the times they're selling that way.
Okay.
And just stay on top of it. And typically, if you have a good real estate agent, they'll be on top of it for you, and you don't need to be the one doing the work. That's why they get paid.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What are your thoughts on the age-old question of, should I buy a single-family home with all that comes along with that? Should I buy a condo where some of the legwork is, taken care of, or a duplex? There's a lot to consider. How would you weigh those options?
They're all smart investments, and they really have their own benefits and negatives. A lot of people say negative things in terms of buying condos. They think it doesn't have the same liquidity that single-family homes does, which isn't true at all. I think right now in Minneapolis, properties over $1 million are selling within 2 or 3 days, and so, if you've got $1 million condo to sell, I would suggest getting on it, because they're selling. There's a large number of buyers out there, but so condos do sell, and what the upside of the condos is that you have your association has someone that takes care of the maintenance. If you've got some sort of plumbing or electrical issues and things like that, and you've got you don't have to deal with your yard, you don't have to shovel snow, it's all taken care of. You can tell a lot of the times there's heated indoor parking and things, amenities like a pool or a gym that you don't have to pay for additionally on top of your HOA fees. And obviously the benefit of having a single family home is that you can make it your own. You've got a yard, you've got things you can do to it, and you've got more room. You're not as tightly knit to neighbors. You're not sharing walls with people. So it's a bit more independence. And then the townhome is kind of the hybrid of the two. So best of both worlds, or worst of both worlds, however you want to look at it. But they've all got plenty of upsides.
Okay. If someone decided right now that home ownership was something that they wanted to pursue, where would you even start?
Well, once you've got your finances in order, you're going to want to talk to a loan officer. So there's plenty of banks, plenty of options out there.
Before a real estate agent?
Yep. The first thing you want to do is get pre-approved for a loan. So once you do that, you can see what you can afford, and you can see the different options you have for the payment, for the down payment. And then find yourself a real estate agent. Oftentimes your loan officer would recommend somebody, but you can find out someone on your own. And they'll help you, lock down exactly what you want, and make sure before you're talking with an agent what you want, so you're not out, running around and then realizing that you're not exactly into the things you're checking out. But once you work with the agent, then that's the first step, I guess. The second step, I should say.
Okay. All right. So maybe someone wants to know more. Where could they find you?
If you've got any questions, you can shoot me an email at bradymason@edinarealty.com. My office is in Edina, right across from the Southdale Mall in the 6800 building on France Avenue.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Brady.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Our second guest of the night is Brent Gross, a certified personal trainer who specializes in high-intensity interval training, also known as HIIT.
Thanks so much for joining us, Brent.
My pleasure, Tyler. Thank you.
Can you explain to our audience a little bit about what HIIT training or high-intensity interval training is?
Absolutely. High-intensity interval training is really about those two elements, really high intensity and interval training. So what's important is that you're choosing an exercise that is going to drive your heart rate up.
Okay, that's the high-intensity part.
That's the high-intensity part. When we're talking about intensity, we're talking about heart rate and just your overall sense of exertion. You want to be working very, very hard. Really to a point of exhaustion. The interval piece is that it's usually a timed exercise. So instead of counting your repetitions, like some people out there may be used to, you're going to need a stopwatch. There are a lot of really good interval timer apps out there, actually, where you can set to your work time and your rest time. So really what you need is a stopwatch, though.
Okay.
However long it takes you to really get to that exhaustion, my recipe for success on HIIT training has been to do about half as much time resting. So let's say
half as much time resting versus exercise?
Versus exercise.
Okay.
Yep. So let's say I choose an exercise like running in place and just really driving my knees up very high.
Okay.
Let's say that takes me a minute to really get exhausted. I do not want to lift my leg one more time. I'm going to rest for 30 seconds before I repeat that exercise again.
Okay. And that's just one example, right? You could also do 40 seconds of exercise and 20 seconds rest?
Exactly. One of the reasons that HIIT training became so popular was a study that came out in the 90s where they took athletes to something like 170% of what was their maximum, and just very, very exhaustive training. But it was only 20 seconds of work, followed by 10 seconds of exercise. The whole the whole workout was only 4 minutes. It was about 7 or 8 of those intervals, those 30-second intervals, and I'll tell you what, it was as effective as, the long bouts of kind of, moderate intensity, break a sweat, but chatting with your neighbor, kind of working out. So you're not going to want to chat during this exercise.
That's Dr. Tabata's program, right?
Yes, that's a Tabata workout, and there's whole programs named after that, named the Tabata workouts, and that's usually that kind of 20-10 model, that 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds recovery. I've found that I really like to give my participants, and even myself, some time to get in the groove with an exercise, so I'll really modify it to do a 40-20 is really common workout for me, and then maybe sometimes something a little harder with the 60-30 or something like that. But honestly, if you're really just focused on getting the heart rate up and getting the benefits of exercise, you can even just choose one exercise and repeat it for, making sure your total workout time doesn't really need to be more than, 5 minutes of that really strenuous work. You probably want to warm up and cool down a little bit, but
with some rest in between, right?
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
Not 5 minutes of high intensity.
No, it is not 5 minutes. It would be, say we did that 40-20, that totals a minute. That would be your interval, and you'd repeat that 5 times perhaps.
Okay.
So that would be, that said, the more is better often. So whatever you got time for. But again, the movements don't have to be difficult. They really shouldn't be. It should be more about just choosing exercises that really drive your heart rate up.
Yep. You mentioned high knees. What are some other exercises people could do for high intensity intervals?
Some jumping jacks are often a really good one. There are some speed, you can always kind of do quick jogging in place. You can do your jumping jacks really fast. It really depends on your fitness. So jumping jacks might not be enough for some people, but there are different modifications you can do to make it tough. The one exercise that's going to kick anybody's butt, no matter where they're at, is a burpee.
Okay.
And that's where you, from standing, drop down into a push-up position, go through your push-up, jump up and in the air as quickly as you can, then right back down into that push-up again. And if you're not ready to do it all the way to the floor, if you can't do a push-up there, you can use a chair or use a step. Just make sure that you're being safe and that you try a few out before you really go all out.
So easy to modify, a lot of different options. What are some risks or precautions people should be aware of who have never done high-intensity interval training before?
Again, the number one thing is, in my experience, leading HIIT classes, doing HIIT workouts myself, the number one thing is to choose movements that you're familiar with. The purpose of HIIT training is to be really time effective, but to get your heart rate up. You don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you're doing. Also, if you're not familiar with the movement, you may be more likely to injure yourself. It is very high intensity training, so I always recommend that people don't just stop. That can lead to dizziness sometimes. So it's good to just kind of walk in place or keep yourself moving in a light, in a light way during those rest intervals. Really, it's just about keeping the blood moving. Your heart's really good at sending blood out. It's not so good at sucking it back in. The muscles are going to pump that blood around the system, even just simple walking in place. So if somebody out there, one of your viewers does feel, experience any dizziness or nausea or anything like that, it's important just to lie down and on your side and kind of make sure you recover.
Just so you're pushing yourself, but keeping in mind, listen to your body, basically. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. If people are more interested in HIIT training, where can they reach you?
So I post a weekly HIIT workout on my Instagram @BeGrowFit. It's very low key. That's almost all that's on my Instagram at this time. But I do intend to put some more content on there, and if any of your viewers were to reach out to me for links or more details on any of the exercises I have written down there, that would be might just be the nudge I need to get a little more content on there. So I do try to choose really the common names for exercises. Don't try to get too creative with that. I want to make sure that anybody can do a simple internet search and find pictures and videos of the exercises that I list there. You can also search HIIT, high intensity interval training, and find images and videos of workouts for you. Again, all you need is a stopwatch. I know that both on iOS and Android there's a lot of apps specifically for interval training. Again, you could just search HIIT or simply interval timer.
Okay, great. That's a lot of useful information. Thanks so much for joining us, Brent.
My pleasure. Thank you.